Hi, I'm Bill Donohue, President of the Catholic League. Here we have Mike McDonald, Director of Communications. We want to talk about the religious roots of our freedoms because, as we saw with our billboard, we are celebrating that. If you don't have a religious anchor to your society, and a Judeo-Christian one, which works best, by the way, then you're not likely to have a free society. You know, for Fareed Zakaria, people may know him from CNN. He's hardly a conservative, but he's a pretty fair-minded, bright guy. He studies American history, and he is a Hindu, so he has no dog in this race, so to speak. When we talk about our Judeo-Christian heritage, he has said that were it not for Christianity, you wouldn't have a free society anywhere in the world. We're the first ones. He credits the Catholic Church explicitly. The Catholic Church was in a collision course with the temporal powers, with the kings, the monarchs, the potentates, the leaders of the society. And the Catholic Church was looking for a little breathing room, so to speak, so that religious freedom could exist. If it wasn't for Christianity opposing the contemporary leaders, and the state, so to speak, you wouldn't have had a free society. In fact, when you take a look at the Chinese and the Japanese, they didn't even have a word in their language for freedom until the 19th century. In other words, the idea that I could be a free individual practicing my religion, freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, and the like, that idea was so foreign to the people in Asia that they didn't even have a word for it in their language. This is not taught in the schools. It should be taught in the schools, but there's also a lot more to it in terms of the Christian tradition.
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. And I think one of the things that you hear so often about the sort of foundational myth that the founding fathers wanted absolutely nothing to do with religion, that there was this hard wall of separation between church and state, and that's the way. Well, those words don't appear in the Constitution. They don't appear in the Declaration, and in fact, it's the exact opposite, right? It's Jefferson's appeal to nature and nature's God that is the foundation of all the rights that we discuss about. And it's interesting, you brought up the Catholic Church sort of on a collision course with the monarchs. We see that played out in the American institutions, right? The separation of powers between the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch. That sort of notion definitely finds a home here in America for the first time, written out in such a way. You don't really see that in the Magna Carta or anything else coming out of Europe at the time. So definitely, and obviously these were very deeply religious men. All the founders were. I mean, okay, Jefferson was a deist, but he believed that there was a higher power and that you could invoke that higher power, as we just mentioned, to affirm our rights as Americans.
You're right. He wasn't certain about the divinity of Christ. Okay, so he was somewhat agnostic on that. But one day they saw him walk into church, and somebody said to him, "What do you have that little red book for?" He said, "That's a Bible." He said, "What? You don't believe a word of it?" He says, "It doesn't make any difference. What matters is that you have to have religion, and Christianity is the right religion in terms of its nexus with liberty." Washington certainly understood that. Adams said the Constitution was only made for a religious and moral people. Now we understood, as Jefferson did, natural rights. The Catholic Church has been the pioneer on this. Every man and woman has natural rights given by God. 4 times in the Declaration, Jefferson mentions the Creator. He makes references to God, to divine providence. So he understood, even if personally he struggled with the idea about Christ's divinity, he understood the anchor role of religion in our society. And this idea of natural rights, natural law, that's been encoded even in the United Nations. As Mary Ann Glendon, the former Harvard law professor, brilliant woman on our board of advisors, said, that's where it came from. The United Nations leaned on the Declaration, took those same ideas, inalienable rights. They're not up for grabs, they're not up for a vote, and they come from a creator. Our rights do not come from government. So unless people understand that if you don't have religious roots, you are going to wind up deracinated. And secularism is not the answer, as we've seen in history.
No, it is not.
Thank you.